Hi guys, it's Miss Portillo. I'm here to do our next section of our Wrinkle in Time novel study. I wanted to start by summarizing what we've been reading up to now. Since these novel studies are paced so far apart, it is always helpful to go back and summarize what you know, make sure you're not missing anything important, which is another reason for our annotations, so that you're making sure that you can also go back and rewatch the videos anytime, of course, but your annotations will help you to make sure that you're not missing anything and that you can constantly and consistently review. Okay, so we met Meg, who lives with her mother, her younger brother, who's 5, Charles Wallace. She does have a dad, but he's missing, and they're not sure where he is at. We also have the 2 twin brothers who don't seem to play a really big part. We have Charles Wallace, who has met some interesting characters, Mrs. Whatsit and Mrs. Who and Mrs. Which. And we met Mrs. Whatsit in the first chapter on a dark, stormy night when she came over to their house. The next day after school, they went and met the Mrs. Who and spoke with her briefly about why she stole Miss Buncombe's sheets. And they also met Calvin before they went into the haunted house, or the house that is rumored to be haunted, where the ladies live. And Calvin seems to have something a little bit different about him, just like Charles Wallace does. Charles Wallace seems to be able to read people, almost like he can tell what they're thinking. And Calvin, who is older than Meg in high school, also has this sort of innate ability to know where to be and when to show up. So we're going to start from where we left off, which is they went back over to Meg and Charles Wallace's house, and Calvin came with them for dinner. And Meg is helping Calvin with math. Okay, so that's where we're going to pick up from. As always, be sure you are annotating and taking notes so you don't miss anything important, and so you can review. This is the craziest family, Calvin grinned at her. I suppose I should stop being surprised by now, but you're supposed to be dumb in school, always being called up on the carpet. Oh, I am. The trouble with Meg and math, Miss Murray said briskly, is that Meg and her father used to play with numbers, and Meg learned far too many shortcuts. So when they want her to do problems the long way around at school, she gets sullen and stubborn and sets up a fine mental block for herself. Are there any more morons like Meg and Charles Wallace around? Calvin asked. If so, then I should meet them. It might also help if Meg's handwriting were legible, Miss Murray said. With a good deal of difficulty, I can usually decipher it, but I doubt very much if her teachers can, or if they're willing to take the time. I'm planning on giving her a typewriter for Christmas. That may be of a help. If I get anything right, nobody'll believe it's me, Meg said. What's a megaparsec? Calvin asked. One of Father's nicknames for me, Meg says. It's also 3.26 million light years. What's E equals mc squared? Einstein's equation. What's E stand for? Energy. M? Mass. C2? The square of the velocity of light in centimeters per second. By what countries is Peru bounded? I haven't the faintest idea. I think it's in South America somewhere. What's the capital of New York? Well, New York City, of course. Who wrote Boswell's Life of Johnson? Oh, Calvin, I'm not any good at English. So he's quizzing her to see what she knows and what she doesn't know. She seems to be particularly smart in especially math, but a little lacking in other areas. Calvin groaned and turned to Miss Murray. I see what you mean. Her I wouldn't want to teach. She's a little one-sided, I grant you, Miss Murray said, though I blame her father and myself for that. She still enjoys playing with her doll's house, though. Mother! Meg shrieked in agony. Oh, darling, I'm sorry, Mrs. Murray said swiftly, but I'm sure Calvin understands what I mean. With a sudden, enthusiastic gesture, Calvin flung his arms out wide, as though he were embracing Meg and her mother, the whole house. How did all this happen? Isn't it wonderful? I feel as though I were just being born. I'm not alone anymore. Do you realize what that means to me? But you're good at basketball and things, Meg protested. You're good in school. Everybody likes you. For all the most unimportant reasons, Calvin said. There hasn't been anybody in the world I couldn't talk to. Sure, I can function on the same level as everybody else. I can hold myself down, but it isn't me. Meg took a batch of forks from the drawer and turned them over and over, looking at them. I'm all confused again. Oh, so am I, Calvin said, but at least now I know we're going somewhere. Meg was pleased and a little surprised when the twins were excited at having Calvin for supper. They knew more about his athletic record and were far more impressed by it than she. Calvin ate 5 bowls of stew, 3 saucers of jello, and a dozen cookies. And then Charles Wallace insisted that Calvin take him up to bed and read to him. The twins, who had finished their homework, were allowed to watch half an hour of TV. Meg helped her mother with the dishes and then sat at the table and struggled with her homework. But she couldn't concentrate. Mother, are you upset? She asked suddenly. Mrs. Murray looked up from a copy of an English scientific magazine through which she was leafing. For a moment she did not speak. Then, yes. Why? Again Mrs. Murray paused. She held out her hands and looked at them. They were long and strong and beautiful. She touched with the fingers of her right hand the broad gold band on the 3rd finger of her left hand. I'm still quite a young woman, you know, though I realize that that's difficult for you children to conceive. And I'm still very much in love with your father. I miss him quite dreadfully. And you think all this has something to do with father? I think it must have. But what? That I don't know. But it seems the only explanation. Do you think things always have an explanation? Yes, I believe they do. But I think that with our human limitations, we're not always able to understand the explanations. But you see, Meg, just because we don't understand doesn't mean that the explanation doesn't exist. I like to understand things, Meg said. We all do, but it isn't always possible. Charles Wallace understands more than the rest of us, doesn't he? Yes. Why is that? I suppose because he's different, Meg. Different how? I'm not quite sure. You know yourself he's not like anybody else. No, and I wouldn't want him to be, Meg said defensively. Wanting doesn't have anything to do with it. Charles Wallace is what he is. Different. New. New? Yes, that's what your father and I feel. Meg twisted her pencil so hard that it broke. She laughed. I'm sorry. I'm really not being destructive. I'm just trying to get things straight. I know. But Charles Wallace doesn't look different from anybody else. No, Meg, but people are more than just the way they look. Charles Wallace's difference isn't physical. It's in essence. Meg sighed heavily, took off her glasses and twirled them, put them back on again. Well, I know Charles Wallace is different, and I know he's something more. I guess I'll just have to accept it without understanding it. Mrs. Murray smiled at her. Maybe that's really the point I was trying to put across. Yeah, Meg said dubiously. Her mother smiled again. Maybe that's why our visitor last night didn't surprise me. Maybe that's why I'm able to have a willing suspension of disbelief, because of Charles Wallace. Are you like Charles? Meg asked. I? Heavens no. I'm blessed with more brains and opportunities than many people, but there's nothing about me that breaks out of the ordinary mold. Your looks do, Meg said. Mrs. Murray laughed. You just haven't had enough basis for comparison, Meg. I'm really very ordinary. Calvin O'Keefe, coming in, then said, Ha! Charles all settled? Mrs. Murray asked. Yes. What did you read to him? Genesis. His choice. By the way, what kind of experiment were you working on this afternoon, Mrs. Murray? Oh, something my husband and I were cooking up together. I don't want to be too far behind him when he gets back. Mother, Meg pursued, Charles says I'm not one thing or the other. Not flesh, nor fowl, nor good red herring. Oh, for crying out loud, Calvin said. You're Meg, aren't you? Come on, let's go for a walk. But Meg was still not satisfied. And what do you make of Calvin? She demanded her mother. Mrs. Murray laughed. I don't want to make anything of Calvin. I like him very much, and I'm delighted he's found his way here. Mother, you were going to tell me about a tesseract. Yes. A troubled look came into Mrs. Murray's eyes. But not now, Meg. Not now. Go on out for that walk with Calvin. I'm going up to kiss Charles, and then I will have to see the twins get to bed. Outdoors, the grass was wet with dew, the moon halfway up and dimmed the stars for a great arc. Calvin reached out and took Meg's hand with a gesture as simple and friendly as Charles Wallace's. Were you upsetting your mother? He asked gently. I don't think I was, but she is upset. What about? Father. Calvin led Meg across the lawn. The shadows of the trees were long and twisted, and there was a heavy, sweet, autumnal smell to the air. Meg stumbled as the land sloped suddenly downhill, but Calvin's strong hand steadied her. They walked carefully across the twins' vegetable garden, picking their way through rows of cabbage, beets, broccoli, and pumpkins. Looming on their left were the tall stalks of corn. Ahead of them was a small apple orchard bound by a stone wall, and beyond this, the woods through which they had walked that very afternoon. Calvin led the way to the wall and then sat there, his red hair shining silver in the moonlight, his body dappled with patterns from the tangle of branches. He reached up, picked an apple off a gnarled limb, handed it to Meg, and then picked one for himself. Tell me about your father. He's a physicist. Well, sure, we all know that. And he's supposed to have left your mother and gone off with some dame. Meg jerked up from the stone on which she was perched, but Calvin grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her back down. Hold it, kid. I didn't say anything you hadn't already heard, did I? No, Meg said, but continued to pull away. Let me go. Come on, calm down. You know it isn't true, and I know it isn't true. And how anybody, after one look at your mother, could believe any man would leave her for another woman just shows how far jealousy will make people go, right? I guess so, Meg said, but her happiness had fled, and she was back in a morose of anger and resentment. Look, dope, Calvin shook her gently. I just want to get things straight. Sort out the fact from the fiction. Your father's a physicist. That's a fact, yes? Yes. He's a PhD several times over. Yes. Most of the time he works alone, but some of the time he was at the Institute for Higher Learning in Princeton, correct? Yes. Then he did some work for the government, didn't he? Yes. Okay, you take it from there. That's all I know. That's about all I know too, Meg said. Maybe Mother knows more. I don't know. What he did was, well, it was what they called classified. Top secret, you mean? That's right. And you don't have any idea what it was even about? Meg shook her head. No, not really. Just an idea because of where he was. Well, where was he? Out in New Mexico for a while. We were with him there, and then he was in Florida at Cape Canaveral, and we were with him there too. And then he was going to be traveling a lot, so we came here. You've always had this house? Yes, but we used to live in it just in the summer. And you don't know where your father was sent? Nope. At first we got lots of letters. Mother and Father always wrote each other every other day. I think Mother still writes him every night. Every once in a while, the postmistress makes some kind of crack about all her letters. I suppose they think she's pursuing him or something, Calvin said bitterly. They can't understand plain, ordinary love when they see it. Well, go on. What happened next? Nothing happened, Meg said. That's the trouble. Well, what about your father's letters? They just stopped coming. You haven't heard anything at all? Nope, nothing. Her voice was heavy with misery. Silence fell between them, as tangible as the dark tree shadows that fell across their laps, and that now seemed to rest upon them as heavily as though they possessed a measurable weight of their own. At last, Calvin spoke in a dry, unemotional voice, not looking at Meg. Do you think he could be dead? Again, Meg leaped up, and again Calvin pulled her down. No, they'd have told us if he were dead. There's always a telegram or something. They always tell you. What do they tell you? Meg choked down a sob, managed to speak over it. Oh, Calvin, Mother's tried and tried to find out. She's been down to Washington and everything. And all they'll say is that he's on a secret and dangerous mission, and she can be very proud of him. But we won't be able to communicate with him for a while, and they'll give us news as soon as they have it. Meg, don't get mad, but do you think that maybe they don't know? A slow tear trickled down Meg's cheek. That's what I'm afraid of. Why don't you cry? Calvin asked gently. You're just crazy about your father, aren't you? Go ahead and cry. It'll do you good. Meg's voice came out trembling over tears. I cry much too much already. I should be like Mother. I should be able to control myself. Your mother's a completely different person, and she's a lot older than you are. I wish I were a different person, Meg said. I hate myself. Calvin reached over and took off her glasses. Then he pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket and wiped her tears. This gesture of tenderness undid her completely, and she put her head down on her knees and sobbed. Calvin sat quietly beside her, every once in a while patting her head. I'm sorry, she sobbed finally. I'm terribly sorry. Now you'll hate me. Oh, Meg, you are a moron, Calvin said. Don't you know you're the nicest thing that's happened to me in a long time? Meg raised her head, and moonlight shone on her tear-stained face. Without the glasses, her eyes were unexpectedly beautiful. If Charles Wallace is a sport, I think I'm a biological mistake. Moonlight flashed against her braces as she spoke. Now she was waiting to be contradicted. But Calvin said, Do you know this is the first time I've ever seen you without your glasses? I'm as blind as a bat without them. I'm nearsighted like Father. Well, you know what? You've got dreamboat eyes, Calvin said. Listen, you go right on wearing your glasses. I don't think I want anybody else to see what gorgeous eyes you have. Meg smiled with pleasure. She could feel herself blushing. Okay, hold it, you two, came a voice out of the shadows. Charles Wallace stepped into the moonlight. I wasn't spying on you, he said quickly, and I hate to break things up. But this is it, kids, this is it. This is what? Calvin asked. We're going. Going? Where? Meg reached out. I don't know where exactly, Charles Wallace said, but I think it's to go find Father. Suddenly, two eyes seemed to spring out at them out of the darkness. It was the moonlight striking on Mrs. Who's glasses. She was standing next to Charles Wallace, and how she had managed to appear where a moment ago there had been nothing but shadows was beyond Meg. She heard a sound behind her and turned around. There was Mrs. Whatsit scrambling over the wall. My, but I wish there were no wind, Miss Whatsit said. It's so difficult with all these clothes. She wore her outfit the same as the night before, rubber boots and all, with the addition of one of Miss Buncombe's sheets, which she had draped over her. As she slid off the wall, the sheet caught on a low branch and came off. The felt hat slipped over both eyes, and another branch plucked at the pink stole. Oh dear, I shall never learn to manage. Mrs. Who wafted over to her, tiny feet scarcely seeming to touch the ground, the lenses of her glasses glittering. What grievous pain a little fault doth give thee! With a claw-like hand, she pushed the hat up on Miss Watson's forehead, untangled the stole from the tree, and with a deft gesture took the sheet and folded it. Oh, thank you, Miss Watson said. You're so clever. Just because you're a few paltry billion years, Miss Whatsit was starting indignantly when a sharp, strange voice cut in. All right, girls, this is no time for bickering. It's Mrs. Witch, Charles Wallace said. There was a faint gust of wind. The leaves shivered in it. The patterns of moonlight shifted, and in a circle of silver something shimmered, quivered, and the voice said, I do not think I will materialize completely. I find it very tiring, and we have much to do. So she's not stuttering. It looks like she's almost talking like a snake. So instead of saying Sam, I'd say Sam. Okay? When you hear someone talking like they're a snake, maybe if you've seen Harry Potter or something, and when they speak they kind of elongate the words, make them longer, and drag out the first and last sounds. Okay, we are done with chapter 3. It's starting to get a little bit more exciting. We met Calvin. We heard more about Dad being missing and what he used to do. We've met all 3 of the misses now, the ladies. Um, and now they're about to go on a trip. So, chapter 4 is called The Black Thing, and I'm thinking it's going to get more and more interesting as we go. All right, so I hope that you are annotating and taking notes. I hope you heard a few really good words that you could try to decode on your own or check, confirm with a resource. I've been getting y'all's, those of you who have messaged me and made comments, and I'm really impressed with the challenges that you guys are facing with this distance learning and how much you're learning right now and how hard you're trying. So to keep putting those answers or keep messaging me your answers and tell me your thoughts. Send me pictures of your annotations. And I will see you next week for the next chapter of A Wrinkle in Time.